Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is savor. Let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear savor used means to taste good food or drink and enjoy it completely. When I think about this first definition, I sort of think of someone keeping food or drink in their mouth, maybe a little bit longer than they would through like normal eating and drinking ways. But it's like, this is so good, I want to kind of hold on to this particular taste. Related to that is our second definition, to enjoy or appreciate something that, again, is pleasant, something that's enjoyable, and you're enjoying it completely. So again, kind of this idea of like, I want to hold on to this happy, pleasant moment. A third way you may encounter the verb savor being used means to have a suggestion or a trace of something, especially something that's bad. So these first two definitions have really positive meanings to it. But then our last one here, this one has a stronger negative one. And again, it's a little less commonly used than those first two definitions. For now, you should know that savor is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing. That forms savoring. The past tense and the participle forms of this verb can be made by just adding ed. Now our base verb, savor, ends in a voiced sound. Our R sound is voiced. This means our ed ending is just going to make a D sound. And I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So the past tense and the participle forms should sound like this. Savored. Savored. Now, there is a phrasal verb you might encounter, and that is to savor of. This can have a couple different meanings. One goes back to our first definition, to have the taste or smell of something. Let's take a look at an example sentence. This stew savors of coriander, cardamom, and turmeric. So here we're naming 3 spices, and really what we're suggesting is like, I can taste these spices in this particular stew, which is usually like a thicker kind of soup, in case that's a new word as well. Now, a second way you can use savor of means for something to be strikingly reminiscent or suggestive of something. So that first word, kind of like something hits your memory and you think like, I know this. An example of this. The way she talks to aides savors of elitism and arrogance. So here, the sentence, again, has more of a negative meaning to it, but when we hear this particular person speak to, and we don't know exactly here if it's like assistants or helpers, but individuals in those kinds of roles, right? It reminds you of somebody who's very arrogant, thinks they're better than the person to whom they're speaking. Now, let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the present perfect and the simple future with be going to. Let's start by reviewing the present perfect. We can use this verb tense in different ways. One way is to talk about completed actions that occurred at an unknown point in the past. That unknown point makes it different than the simple past tense. So we might not be sure if this action happened a year ago, 10 years ago, maybe just yesterday, and that just might not matter. But another way that the present perfect verb tense gets used is to talk about an action that started in the past and continues into the present. To make present perfect sentences, we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subjects are I, you, we, or they, use have and then the participle form of the verb. But if the subject is he, she, or it, you're going to use has and then the participle form to make the affirmative or positive sentences. Let's take a look at an example. U.S. troops have savored the taste of chocolates in their rations since World War II. Okay, so here we're talking about service members, so all kinds of military personnel, right? And again, true story, special chocolate was made so it wouldn't melt as U.S. Soldiers fought in very warm, hot climates. And rations would be kind of the special meals given to military members. They are usually not known for being very good. So that chocolate was usually kind of something to look forward to, kind of a sweet treat that they're going to save it to the end and have that kind of be the last taste that remains in their mouths. Now let's talk about making negative present perfect sentences. To do this, again, we pay attention to our subject. And then we use either have not and then the participle or has not and then the participle. You might also see the contraction form have not becomes haven't, has not becomes hasn't. And you can actually see that in my example here. He hasn't savored anything like that shirt in 20 years of marriage, Mary said with a laugh. It's true, Mike responded. So I thought I needed kind of the whole context there to understand that a little bit. This, I would say, ties back to that second definition of the verb, right? Kind of we're holding something sort of special to us. And this particular couple was talking about their relationship and kind of different quirks involved in it. And again, this wife, for whatever reason, they started talking about an article or item that was very important to the husband. Finally, let's take a look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect. To do this, start with have or has. Whatever form matches your subject, that subject comes next. Then use the participle form of the verb. Here's the last present perfect example. Have you savored these last few warm days? So depending on where you live, the climate may be changing. It's starting to get much cooler where I live, and I've heard people say things similar to this, right? And again, we're back to that second definition of the verb, kind of trying to enjoy these final warm moments before it starts to get very cold. Now, let's take a look at making some sentences in the simple future. There are several ways to do that, but today we're going to focus on sentences with be going to. This is most commonly used when people are discussing their plans. You still may encounter some people use it with promises and predictions, but it's a little less common to see that. This is another verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. So if my subject is I, then my next part of my verb here is going to be am, going to, and then the base verb. But if our subject is you, we, or they, use are, A-R-E, going to, and the base verb. And finally, if our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use is going to. Let's take a look at an example sentence. I'm going to savor every moment of this final season of my favorite TV show. Right? So again, maybe you've said something similar to this. You know something is kind of coming to an end, so you really want to enjoy every second that you are experiencing something. Now, let's talk about making negative simple future sentences. Again, we still pay attention to our subject, right? We're going to use the form of be that matches our subject, then use not before going to and the base verb. So be, not, going to, base verb. Let's take a look at another example. Most people aren't going to savor the taste of alcohol they bought at a drugstore. So here, this sentence is suggesting the quality here probably not the best, not the highest. So someone might not be sort of drinking something and thinking like, this is so enjoyable or so great. Now, let's take a look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, start with your form of be, whatever form matches your subject, that subject comes next. Then use going to in the base verb. Here's a last example. Is she going to savor every moment of her senior year of high school? Again, I feel like I've heard people saying things like that on social media. I've definitely heard parents saying things like, oh, I can't believe my little child is, wrapping up their academic year. And I kind of want to hold on to all of these moments and really enjoy them. Now, let's spend a moment talking about some words that are related to our verb savor. The first word we're going to discuss today is the noun form of this word. The noun savor, you'll notice, has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. When I use this word as a noun, I'm talking about a characteristic taste, maybe a flavor or a smell, and usually this has kind of a positive association with it. So, an example of this. This dish has the subtle savor of cinnamon, right? So maybe I'm tasting it, maybe it is there, maybe it's not, but something is reminding me of that. Another related word you might encounter is the adjective savory. This can have a couple different meanings. One, describes usually a food that belongs to a category that we might describe as either salty or spicy, but usually what it's not is it's not sweet. So an example of this might have somebody ask you, what is your favorite kind of savory snack? Some people might respond with potato chips or nuts, pretzels, right? But again, it's that idea. It's something that tends to be salty, but not sweet. Now, there is a second way to use the adjective savory, and that's to describe something that is morally wholesome or acceptable. You might hear somebody described, or maybe it's a question, is he a savory character, right? So someone you can trust. Are they an honest person? Are they really, we're kind of asking, a good individual? Now, related to that is the adjective unsavory. And you probably know that prefix un means not, and that's what you're going to see here in our definition. So again, a couple ways you might encounter it being used. One, and the one I certainly hear and see most frequently, it's used to describe somebody that's disagreeable, maybe they're unpleasant, and they have bad morals, right? So kind of, again, that idea of somebody who's maybe not a very good person. So an example of that in a sentence could be, that place is full of unsavory people. I'm never working with them again. Right? So maybe I didn't think these people were being honest. I didn't think they were truthful in how they interacted or represented things that happened. Now, you might also encounter unsavory to mean that something is disagreeable to taste, smell, or look at. An example of that in a sentence made. And unfortunately, this is a true example. In the last week, I made the most unsavory dish for my lunch, but I'm eating it. I hate food waste. And that's true. I didn't think I had some of the ingredients I thought were in my kitchen. And so I ended up mixing a bunch of different things. And it was not a meal I will ever make again. But I did eat it all through the course of the week because it is true. I really try hard not to waste food. I hope you are only making delicious dishes for yourself this week, and I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope you all have a great day.